Hello friends, I'm Kamakshi Khandelwal. I'm a chartered accountant by profession, having more than 8 years of experience in indirect taxation. My core competence and area of expertise is indirect taxation, and I specialize in all aspects of excise, service tax, VAT, customs, foreign trade policy, and last but not the least, GST. In my career, I have assisted multiple industries, including the aviation industry, gold industry, logistics, warehousing, broadcasting industry, information technology industry, and the like. Friends, today I am starting my webinar series on GST. So a big warm welcome to all of you. In my entire series, I would be covering the entire GST Act 2017 along with the final rules as set forth. I would be covering topics like basics of GST and supply, time of supply, place of supply, valuation, registration, transitional provisions, return filing, payment, and rules including invoicing rules, e-waybill rules, all of them. So, my topic for today's deliberation is basics of GST and supply. Let's start. Coming over to the first point, what is the importance of GST? Why it is important in India? GST is the biggest indirect tax reform since independence. GST is a one nation, one tax. Almost 17 type of taxes are going to be merged under one basket, that is GST. GST is a destination based tax. What is destination based tax? For example, if I am supplying say from Delhi to Haryana, Delhi being the origin state would not get any tax. IGST would be levied in such a scenario, and Haryana being the destination state would get the SGST component of IGST, since the supply is ultimately consumed in the state of Haryana. Next, it applies to all stages of the value chain. It is a dual GST having two concurrent components. Central GST levied and collected by the center, state GST levied and collected by the state. Tax levy on supply by one taxable person to another taxable person, and not on manufacturing, sale, provision of service. Seamless credit flow in case of B2B. No statutory forms like C form, F form, E1, E2, waybills. So that is why GST is important for India. Now moving on, what is the journey of GST? Let me take you through the journey of GST. What are the various milestones achieved by the government in the past years in relation to GST? First, for the first time in 2006, announcement of the intent to introduce GST by 1st of April 2010. Then, in November 2009, first discussion paper released by the Executive Committee on which comments were provided by the Government of India. Then, in June 2010, three sub-working groups constituted by the Government of India on business process related issues, drafting of central GST and model GST state legislation, basic design of IT system required for GST in general and IGST in particular. Next, in March 2011, for the first time, Constitutional 115th Amendment Bill for GST was introduced in the Parliament. Then in November 2012, Committee on GST design constituted by the Executive Committee. In February 2013, three committees constituted by the Executive Committee. First, dual control, thresholds and exemptions in GST regime. Second, revenue neutral rate for SGST and CGST and place of supply rules. Third, IGST and GST on imports. Now, March 2013, GSTN incorporated as a Section 25 company. GSTN is the backbone of GST. It was incorporated on 28th of March 2013. April 2014, the Constitutional 115th Amendment Bill lapsed. December 2014, again 122nd Constitutional Amendment Bill was introduced in the Parliament. Next, on 14th June 2016, first draft model GST law, CGST, SGST, IGST, along with the valuation rules, was released in the public domain. 3rd August 2016, Rajya Sabha passed the Constitutional 122nd Amendment Bill. Then on 8th August 2016, Lok Sabha passed the Constitutional 122nd Amendment Bill. See the pace with which the government moved. 3rd August, 8th August, then on 8th of September, the 122nd Constitutional Amendment Bill received the President assent, and 122nd Constitutional Amendment Bill became the 101 Constitutional Amendment Act 2016. Then on 12th of September 2016, the GST Council got notified. Next, on 22nd of September 2016, the Council held its first meeting to discuss the draft laws for GST. Next, on 26th of September 2016, the draft rules on registration, payment, invoice were released. Again, on 26th of September, draft formats for different forms. On 27th September, draft rules and formats on return, refund, audit report and ITC mismatch report released. 30th September 2016, the GST Council approved the 5 set of draft GST rules for registration, payment, refund, returns and invoice. Then on 3rd November 2016, 4-tier GST rate finalized by the GST Council. 4-tier GST rate, 5%, 12%, 18% and 28%. 8th of November 2016, GST has started enrollment of existing registered taxpayers state-wise and category-wise. Then on 25th of November 2016, the revised model GST law was released. Next, 17th January 2017, the issue of dual control resolved. Assessees with turnover less than or equal to 1.5 crore will be assessed by the centre and state in the ratio of 10:90, and assessees with turnover greater than 1.5 crore will be assessed by the centre and state in the ratio of 50-50. Next, 27th March 2017, CGST, UTGST, ITGST compensation bill was put in the Parliament for discussion. Next, 29th March 2017, the CGST, UTGST, ITGST and the compensation bill was passed by the Lok Sabha. Then on 6th April 2017, the CGST, UTGST, ITGST and the compensation bill was passed by the Rajya Sabha. Then on 13th of April 2017, the CGST, UTGST, ITGST and compensation bill got the President's assent, and the CGST, UTGST, IGST and the compensation bill became CGST Act, UTGST Act, IGST Act and the Compensation Cess Act. Then on 18th of May 2017, schedule of GST rate for goods chapter wise released along with the finalization of 9 rules: registration, refund, ITC, valuation, composition, invoice, payment rules. Then on 19th of May 2017, schedule of GST rate for services along with SSE code released, and the list of exemptions in GST got finalized. So look at the pace the government is moving. Now, I shall discuss with you what is the need for GST. Why GST is required? Our present indirect tax regime is suffering from certain limitations like multiplicity of taxes both at the central level and the state level, the cascading effect of taxes, double taxation, lack of uniformity. So, let me discuss these points one by one. First, multiplicity of taxes at the central level and the state level. These are the various taxes levied by the central government. First, custom duty. In that we have basic custom duty, countervailing duty, special additional duty and cess. Next, excise duty. In excise duty again we have the basic excise duty and the additional excise duty. Next, service tax, EC, SHEC, KKC, SBC, infrastructure cess, clean energy cess, R&D cess. So many taxes are levied. Now what are the various types of state taxes applicable? First, VAT. VAT is applicable on intrastate sale of goods. CST. CST is applicable on interstate sale of goods. Entry tax, octroi, local body tax, entertainment tax, luxury tax, stamp duty, registration. So, these are the multiple taxes which are levied by the state government. Almost 17 type of indirect taxes are going to be subsumed under one basket, that is GST. So, multiplicity of taxes is going to fade away. Second, double taxation. There is double taxation, that is, two taxes are levied in single transaction in cases like works contract, both VAT and service tax is levied. AC restaurant service, again both VAT and service tax is levied when we go to a AC restaurant. Third, software. Is it a good liable to VAT or a service liable to service tax? So there is double taxation. GST will bring clarity. A transaction can either be classified as goods or a service. Therefore, there would be no double taxation. Schedule 2 of the GST Act specifies certain transactions that would be treated as supply of goods or supply of services. For example, works contract shall be treated as supply of service under GST. Next, cascading effect of taxes. Currently, there is tax on tax applicable on multiple transactions. Just to name a few, there is no credit of the basic customs duty, no credit available to a VAT dealer of excise duty paid on the purchase of a product from a manufacturer, no credit of CST. CST is the part of the cost. No credit of SBC to a service provider or a manufacturer. No credit of KKC to a manufacturer. Credit of KKC is available only to a service provider. So, there is cascading effect of taxes. In GST, cascading effect of taxes would be there, but to a certain extent. Why it would be there? In GST, products like petrol, aviation turbine fuel, natural gas and other petroleum products are not part of GST. So, current taxes like excise and VAT would continue to be levied on such products, the credit of which would not be available in GST. Therefore, cascading effect of taxes would be there in GST, but to a certain extent. Next, lack of uniformity. GST is one nation, one tax. Diversity of taxes will go away and there would be a one uniform single tax applicable on all the transactions. So that is why GST is required in India. Now, what are the benefits of GST? First, for consumers, the overall tax burden on most of the commodities will come down. One tax from the manufacturer to the consumer, leading to transparency of taxes paid by the final consumer. Now, what are the benefits for the trade and industry? Seamless input credit throughout the supply chain. Reduction in compliance cost. Multiple taxes are not required to be maintained. Uniformity of tax rates and structures. Elimination of double taxation on works contract, software. Simplified and automated procedures for different processes such as registration, return, refund, tax payments, etc. Now, I would like to discuss with you the Constitution 101 Amendment Act 2016. Now, first question, why constitutional amendment was required? Why the constitution was amended? Under the Constitution of India, the centre had the power to levy tax on services, but the state government had no such power. And the state government had the power to levy tax on the sale or purchase of goods. Centre had the power to levy tax on manufacture of goods and not sale of goods, except for interstate. So to empower both the central government as well as the state government to levy tax on supply of goods or services, the constitution was amended. Now, an important section in the constitution, there are 20 sections in the Constitutional Amendment Act. One of the section 12, deals with the GST Council. What is GST Council? And what does the GST Council do? First is, what is GST Council and why it is formed? Why GST Council is formed? According to section 12 of the 101 Constitutional Amendment Act 2016, the President shall within 60 days from the date of notification of the Constitution 101 Amendment Act 2016 constitute GST Council. However, the GST Council was formed on 12th September 2016, just within 4 days of the Constitution Amendment Act 2016 notification. Who are the members of the GST Council? The Union Minister of State in charge of revenue and state finance ministers of all the states are its members. So now what does this GST Council do? They are deciding the subject matter of GST. The council shall recommend to the union and states on existing taxes, cesses, surcharges to be subsumed in GST, exempted or taxable goods or services, the model GST law, IGST levy and apportionment, place of supply principles, threshold limit of turnover exempted from GST, rates, what will be the rates, floor rates with bands, special rates to raise additional resources during natural calamity or disaster and any other matter. Now, what is the quorum of this GST Council? 50% of the members constitute the quorum for the GST Council. Vote of the central government shall have weightage of 1/3 of the total votes cast, and votes of all state governments taken together shall have weightage of 2/3 of the total votes cast in the meeting. But every decision taken in the meeting shall be passed by the majority of not less than 3/4 of the total weighted votes of the members present in the meeting. The council shall also establish a mechanism to adjudicate any dispute arising out of its recommendations, like changes in entries in list 1 and 2, compensation for loss of revenue to the states for 5 years, if there is any dispute between the center and the state, state versus states, and states versus state. Now there is another body called the GSTN, the Goods and the Service Tax Network. What is this? GSTN is the backbone of GST. It is a section 25 not-for-profit, non-government, private limited company. It was incorporated on 28th of March 2013. GSTN is set up primarily to develop a robust and common IT infrastructure so that the taxpayers can use it for registration, filing of returns, making of payments, generation of business intelligence and analytics. The tax officials of the respective tax department will still have control over some of the key functions such as approval of registration, audit and enforcement, adjudication and recovery, etc. GSTN will also provide help desk support. So GSTN plays a vital role in the GST system. Now coming over to the next, what are the taxes that are going to be subsumed in GST? Before starting with what all taxes are going to be subsumed in GST, I would like to discuss what all changes are made in the various lists in the Constitutional Amendment Act 2016. First, entry number 84 of the Union List, excise duty. It provides to levy duties of excise on tobacco and other goods produced or manufactured in India. Now, this entry has been amended to provide that duties of excise shall be levied on the following goods, namely, first category, petrol and petroleum products like petroleum crude, high-speed diesel oil, motor spirit commonly known as petrol, natural gas, aviation turbine fuel. So, petroleum and petroleum products will be brought under the GST net from a date to be notified by the GST Council. Second, tobacco and tobacco products. So, in addition to GST, central excise duty shall also be levied on tobacco and tobacco products. Now, next, entry number 92 of Union List. Taxes on the sale or purchase of newspapers, etc. This entry has been deleted from the Constitutional Amendment Act. Thus, GST shall be applicable on the sale or purchase of newspapers. Next, entry number 92C of Union List. Tax on services. This entry has also been subsumed under GST. So now GST would be applicable on supply of any service. Next, entry number 52 of State List. Power to levy entry tax. Taxes on entry of goods into the local area for consumption, use or sale therein has been subsumed in GST. Entry number 54 of State List. Power to levy VAT on sale or purchase of goods other than newspapers. This entry has been amended to provide that VAT shall be levied on petrol and petroleum products, alcoholic liquor for human consumption, but no VAT on interstate and international trade or commerce, that is import or export. Next, Entry number 55 of the state list, taxes on advertisement. This entry has also got deleted and merged in GST. Entry number 62 of state list, taxes on luxury, entertainment and amusement. This entry has been amended to provide that taxes on luxury, entertainment etc. shall be subsumed in GST unless levied by the local bodies, municipalities, panchayats. This means that tax on luxury, entertainment etc. shall continue to be levied by the state if it is levied by the local bodies. Now, I would like to discuss with you entries not amended or deleted in the Constitutional Amendment Act 2016. First, entry number 92A of Union List, power to levy CST on interstate trade or commerce. This entry has not been amended. So does that mean that CST shall continue to be levied? CST would continue in GST regime. This shall continue only in respect of those products that are out of GST. That is petrol and petroleum products, alcoholic liquor for human consumption. So CST would also continue along with GST. Next, entry number 53 of state list, power to levy electricity duty. State taxes on sale or consumption of electricity will continue. Thus, electricity duty would continue to be levied. Electricity is not part of GST. Thus, the following taxes shall be subsumed in the GST. First, let's have a look at the central taxes. Central excise duty, state excise duty levied under the Medicinal and Toilet Preparations Excise Duties Act 1955, service tax, central sales tax, CVD, special additional duty of customs known as SAD, central cesses and surcharges in so far as they relate to supply of goods or services. The following state taxes shall be subsumed in GST: VAT, entry tax, entertainment tax, unless it is levied by the local bodies, tax on lottery, betting and gambling, purchase tax, octroi, state cesses and charges in so far as they relate to the supply of goods or services. All these taxes would now be subsumed in GST. All the central taxes would now be subsumed under the CGST. All the state taxes would be subsumed as SGST. And what about IGST? IGST is nothing but the sum total of CGST and SGST. Now there is one more thing called the UTGST. What is UTGST? UTGST is the same as SGST. It is applicable in those union territories which do not have any state legislature, like Lakshadweep, Daman and Diu, Andaman and Nicobar, Chandigarh. So, if a transaction is taking place in these union territories, UTGST shall be levied. Now, coming over to the next, what are the taxes that are not going to be subsumed in GST? Let's have a look. Basic custom duty, other custom duty like anti-dumping duty, safeguard duty, export duty, road and passenger tax, toll tax, property tax, stamp duty, electricity duty, taxes on entertainment and amusement levied by local bodies. All these taxes shall continue to be levied. Now, let me give you a brief outline of the CGST Act or the UTGST Act or the IGST Act. In CGST Act, we have 174 sections, 21 chapters and 3 schedules. Schedule 1 deals with activities to be treated as supply even if made without consideration. Schedule 2, activities to be treated as supply of goods or supply of services. Schedule 3, activities or transactions which shall be treated neither as supply of goods or supply of services. Now we have 25 sections and 9 chapters in the IGST Act and 26 sections and 9 chapters under the UTGST Act. Now let us understand the levy and collection. On which transactions the GST shall be levied. Section 9 of the CGST Act 2017. It says, subject to the provisions of subsection 2, there shall be levied a tax called the Central Goods and Service Tax on all intrastate supplies of goods or services or both, except on the supply of alcoholic liquor for human consumption, on the value determined under section 15 and at such rates not exceeding 20%. 20% is only for CGST. The upper cap for the SGST or the UTGST is again 20%. So the maximum rate becomes 40%. As may be notified by the government on the recommendation of the council and collected in such manner as may be prescribed. That means point of taxation. Similar provision has been made in the SGST Act also, in that in place of the Central Goods and Service Tax, it is written there shall be levied a tax called the State Goods and Service Tax on all intrastate supplies of goods or services or both. Thus, on intrastate supplies, that is within the state supplies of goods or services, CGST and SGST shall be applicable. Next subsection, the central tax on supply of petroleum crude, high speed diesel, motor spirit commonly known as petrol, natural gas and aviation turbine fuel shall be levied with effect from such date as may be notified by the government on the recommendation of the council. Next subsection is important. It says the government may on the recommendation of the council by notification specify categories of supplies of goods or services or both, the tax on which shall be paid on reverse charge basis by the recipient of such goods or services or both, and all the provisions of this act shall apply to such recipient as if he is the person liable for paying the tax in relation to the such supply of goods or services or both. So reverse charge, the activities on which reverse charge is applicable has been specified by the government. On 19th of May, the complete list has been provided on which reverse charge shall be applicable. Now coming over to the next subsection, it says central tax in respect of supply of taxable goods or services or both by a supplier who is not registered to a registered person shall be paid by such person on reverse charge basis as the recipient, and all the provisions of this act shall apply to such recipient as if he is the person liable for paying the tax in relation to such supply of goods or services. So, if I am purchasing any goods or service from an unregistered person, from an unregistered supplier, then me being the registered recipient would be liable to pay tax under reverse charge. Now let us understand what is intrastate supply and what is interstate supply. There are two things. First is, let us start discussing the intrastate supply. It says where the location of the supplier and the place of supply is within the same state or union territory, then it shall be considered as an intrastate supply of goods or services. So there are two important parameters. First is the location of supplier and second is the place of supply. If the location of the supplier and the place of supply are in different states or union territories, then it shall be considered as interstate supply of goods or services. Import or export shall also be treated as interstate supply of goods or services. Supplies to or by an SEZ unit or developer shall also be covered under interstate supply of goods or services, and any other transaction not falling anywhere will also be covered in the interstate supply of goods or services. So let us understand the scenario of applicability of tax in case of goods as well as services. First, illustration 1, present scenario, intrastate trade of goods. In this, an input manufacturer is manufacturing and selling goods to an output manufacturer. Assume that the VAT rate is 10%, the excise duty rate is 10%, and the value addition will also be at the rate of 10% for the sake of simplicity. So the value of the goods is rupees 100, the input manufacturer will be charging excise duty of rupees 10 and VAT of rupees 11. So the total tax invoice value turns out to 121. Now the output manufacturer will be able to take credit of both the excise duty as well as the VAT levied. Now the cost for the output manufacturer is again rupees 100. The value shall be 10% value addition rupees 110. On it excise duty applicable 11, VAT 12.10. So the total turns out to 133.10. But the tax that would the output manufacturer would be depositing would be excise duty out liability is 11, but he is getting the credit of rupees 10. So the output manufacturer would be submitting to the department only 1 rupee. Same in the case of VAT, the duty liability is 12.10, ITC 11 rupees available, 1.10 would be submitted to the department. Now when this output manufacturer sold to a dealer, so what is the cost to the dealer? Now the cost to the dealer is rupees 121. The value addition is including is 133.10. Now only VAT shall be applicable because he is a dealer. So VAT of 13.31 is applicable. Now the total value at which the dealer is selling goods to the consumer turns out to 146.41. Now the dealer would not be eligible to take the credit of excise duty charged by the manufacturer. So he would be only eligible to take the credit of VAT. So his VAT liability is 13.21, on which he has utilized ITC of 12.10. Thereby he would be submitting to the department 1.21. Therefore in this total transaction, the central tax deposited with the government is rupees 11 and the state taxes deposited with the state government is 13.31. Now let us understand what will happen in the case of GST in the same scenario. When the input manufacturer is supplying goods to the output manufacturer, intrastate, that is within the same state, he will be charging CGST and SGST. So the value is rupees 100, he will be charging CGST of rupees 10 and SGST of rupees 10. The total turns out to 120. The output manufacturer will take the credit of this CGST and SGST. So now the cost for the output manufacturer is rupees 100. His sale value, his supply value is 110. Again, he shall levy CGST and SGST when he is supplying the goods to a dealer. So the total value for the dealer turns out to be 132. Now the output manufacturer would discharge his liability for CGST and SGST by utilizing his tax credit of CGST and SGST of rupees 10. So the dealer, the output manufacturer deposited 1 rupee each CGST and SGST to the central government and the state government respectively. Now the dealer who is selling to the ultimate consumer, his cost is 110, his value is 121. He should also be levying CGST and SGST of 12.10 each. So the total invoice value turns out to 145.20. Now in this scenario, the dealer would be able to take the full credit of CGST and SGST. So he would be depositing only 1.10 each of CGST and SGST to the central government and the respective state government. So the total amount of central taxes deposited with the central government comes out to 12.10 and state tax is also 12.10. Now let us take another scenario, the scenario of interstate trade of goods. In this, the input manufacturer manufactured and sold goods to the output manufacturer by charging excise duty and VAT. So the output manufacturer would be able to claim this credit of excise and VAT. Now, assuming that entry tax is also applicable when the output manufacturer is selling the goods to a dealer, then in that scenario, the cost for the dealer becomes 126.42, his value is 139.06 and the VAT would be 13.91. The total invoice value that he would be charging to the consumer turns out to 152.97. So in this scenario, the total central taxes deposited with the central government is 11 and the total state taxes deposited with the state government is 16.91. Now let us see what will happen in GST in case of interstate trade of goods or services. The input manufacturer at the time of supply of goods to the output manufacturer being in the same state would be charging CGST and SGST. So when his value is 100, CGST and SGST rupees 10 is applicable, the total invoice value for the input manufacturer turns out to 120. Now the output manufacturer, if supposingly he is located in the state of Delhi and he is supplying the goods to a dealer located in Chennai. So now what tax shall be applicable? IGST shall be applicable. So the cost for the output manufacturer is rupees 100, value is 110. Now IGST shall be levied of rupees 22. The total invoice value turns out to 132. Now the output manufacturer has a credit of CGST and SGST lying with him. So he can utilize this credit of CGST and SGST to discharge his IGST tax liability. So he has to deposit to the government only rupees 2. Now when the dealer is supplying the goods to the final consumer in Chennai, he will raise a tax invoice by charging CGST and SGST. So the cost is 110, the value is 121, CGST and SGST 12.10 each, the total invoice value turns out to 145.20. Thus, in this scenario, the total central tax deposited with the central government is rupees 12. Now, moving on to another scenario for intrastate trade of service or interstate trade of service. Currently, service tax is applicable whether it is an intrastate trade of service or whether it is an interstate trade of service. So let us examine this. An input service provider provided a service to an output service provider by charging service tax, assuming the service tax rate is 10%. So his value of service is rupees 100, The service tax is rupees 10, so the total taxable value turns out to 110. Now the output service provider, when he is the output service provider, will be able to take the tax credit of the SENVET credit of the service tax charged by the input service provider. Now when the output service provider is providing services to a consumer, again he would be charging service tax. Cost for the output service provider is rupees 100, value is 110 and service tax is 11. The total value turns out to 121. Therefore, only the total central tax which is deposited to the central government is rupees 11. Now let us understand what will happen in the case of GST, where an input service provider is supplying service to an output service provider in the same state. He will be charging CGST and SGST. And if he is supplying the service to another output service provider in a different state, then he would be charging IGST in such a scenario. So, the output service provider, being a registered person, would be able to take the credit of both CGST and SGST in the case of intrastate transaction or IGST in the case of interstate transaction. And he can utilize the same while discharging his tax liability. Now, when the output service provider is supplying service to the ultimate consumer who is located in the same state, then again he would be charging CGST and SGST, but this time he has to deposit the tax to the government. The balance tax after utilizing his ITC would be required to be deposited with the government. So the total central taxes that and the state tax that are required to be deposited in the case of supply of service turns out to 11. Now let us have a look at a comparison. Initial value in the case of intrastate and interstate. In the present scenario, the initial value in the case of intrastate is 121, but in GST the initial value is 120. Center's tax is 11 in the present regime, but in GST it is 12.10. State tax is 13.31 in the present scenario, while in GST it is 12.10. So the state total turns out to 13.31 and 12.10. The total tax paid to the government in the present regime is 24.31, but in GST it is 24.20. The non-vatable tax borne by the business is 11 rupees in GST, in present regime, but in GST the credit is available for each and every transaction. And what is the final value paid by the consumer? In the present regime it is 146.41, while in GST the final consumer has to pay only 145.20. So there is the benefit. Similarly, in the case of interstate, the final value paid by the consumer in the present regime is 152.97, while in the case of GST is 146.65. So the overall price of the supply of goods or supply of service will certainly come down in GST. We have seen this in this comparative table. Similarly, we have prepared a comparative table for the trade of services. In the case of intrastate supply of service, the final value paid by the consumer is 121 and under GST it is 132. While in the case of interstate, in the present regime, the final value paid by the consumer is 133.10 and in GST it is 145.20. See, there is an increase in the final value paid by the consumer in the case of services. Now, let us understand what is the taxable event in GST. For this, we would first understand what is the present indirect taxation structure. In case of excise duty, the taxable event is manufacture or production, and the point of payment, point of taxation is removal from the factory. In case of VAT, the taxable event is sale, and the point of sale and the point of taxation is sale. In case of customs, the taxable event is import or export, and what is the point of taxation? Clearance from the customs. In case of service tax, The taxable event is provisioning or rendering of the services. And when it is paid, the date of invoice or date of payment, whichever is earlier. Now in GST, the taxable event, there is no concept of excise duty, VAT, CVD, SAD, service tax. There is no concept of manufacture, sale. The taxable event is supply. Supply of goods, supply of service, import or export or supply, provisioning or rendering of service. There is no provisioning or rendering of service. This is supply of service. Point of taxation. In the case of supply of goods, shall be the time of supply of goods. In case of import or export, it shall be the time of clearance from the customs. And the case of service, it shall be the time of supply of service. Thus, for every business, it is crucial to understand the relevance of supply, which sets the scope of transactions liable to the levy of GST. So let us understand what is supply. The term supply includes all forms of supply of goods or services supplied or to be supplied for a consideration in the course or the furtherance of business. However, there are specific type of supplies mentioned in the law which need to be considered as supply even if they are made without consideration. Let us understand by categorizing the different types of supply as supply made for a consideration in the course of the furtherance of the business, supply made without consideration, supply made for a consideration whether or not in the course of the furtherance of business. First, Section 7 subsection 1. Supply includes all forms of supply of goods or services or both, such as sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease or disposal, made or agreed to be made. That means advance is also covered. For a consideration, by a person in the course of the furtherance of the business. The words here written are by a person and to a person is not written, which means self-supplies are also taxable. Self-supplies are also liable to GST. Now let us understand these words one by one. First, what is goods? According to Section 2, Clause 52 of the CGST Act, goods means every kind of movable property other than money and securities, but includes actionable claims, growing crops, grass and things attached to or forming part of the land, whether which are agreed to be severed before sale or under the contract of supply. So, every kind of material, article shall be classified as goods. Now, what are services? According to Section 2, Clause 102 of the CGST Act, services means anything other than goods, money and securities, but includes transaction in money or its conversion by cash or by any other mode from one form, currency or denomination to another form, currency or denomination for which a separate consideration is charged. So, service has been defined as anything other than goods. Now, let us understand what are the different types of supply which are defined. First, sale. Any sale of goods or service which broadly result in the transfer of title in case of goods and transfer of right to use in the case of services will be classified as sale. Now, transfer. Any transfers between branches form a part of supply and are taxable. However, GST paid on branch transfers are fully available as input tax credit. Barter or exchange. When the consideration is paid through non-monetary terms instead of monetary terms. For example, A is a photographer, he wants to be a dentist. to get his tooth problem fixed. A agreed to photograph the dentist wedding pictures in return for some dental work of equal value. So this will be considered as barter and exchange, and GST shall also be applicable on such transaction. Next is license. Any grant of license to use forms part of supply. For example, online subscriptions. Next, rental. Renting of property fully or partially is a supply under GST. Lease. Letting out the building or property on lease is a supply under GST. Disposal. Disposal of business assets forms the part of supply. So, we have understood the first subsection, which says that supply includes all forms of supply made for a consideration. So, consideration is necessary to fall under clause A of subsection 1. Now, moving over to the next clause. Clause B. Importation of service for a consideration, whether or not in the course or the furtherance of the business. It also has to be read with clause 4 of schedule 2, which says import of service by a taxable person from a related person or any of his other establishments outside India in the course or the furtherance of business. Thus, import of service is liable to GST whether or not it is made for a consideration and whether or not it is in the course or the furtherance of business. In clause 4 of schedule 2, it says import of service by a taxable person from a related person. Now let us understand who is the related person according to GST. According to explanation to section 15 of the CGST Act, related persons, the person shall be deemed to be related if such persons are officers or directors of one another's businesses. Such persons are legally recognized partners in business. Such persons are employer and employee. Any person directly or indirectly owns, controls or holds 25% or more of the outstanding voting stock or shares of both of them. One of them directly or indirectly controls the other. Both of them are directly or indirectly controlled by a third person. Together, they directly or indirectly control a third person, or they are members of the same family. The term person shall also include legal persons. Persons who are associated in the business of one another, in that one is the sole agent or the sole distributor or sole concessionaire, howsoever described, of the other, shall also be deemed to be related. So these are the list of the persons who shall be deemed to be related according to the GST Act. Now one thing is that consideration is not mandatory to attract GST, that is free services received from outside India shall also be liable to GST. Whether or not in the course or the furtherance of the business is also not relevant, meaning thereby import of service for personal use shall also be liable to GST. For example, I downloaded online gaming, music, videos over the internet. So am I liable to pay GST on the same? After reading the above section, I would say yes, GST is applicable on this transaction. But according to section 14 of the IGST Act, if online information and database access or retrieval service is supplied by any person located in a non-taxable territory to a non-taxable online recipient, the supplier of service located in the non-taxable territory shall be the person liable for paying integrated tax on such transaction. Meaning thereby, if I have downloaded the online gaming system over the internet, So the supplier who is located in the non-taxable territory shall be liable to pay IGST on this transaction, and me being the recipient will not be liable to pay GST. What is the meaning of the non-taxable online recipient? It means any government, local authority, governmental authority, an individual or any other person not registered. So I'm a person who is not registered under GST and receiving online information and database access or retrieval service in relation to any purpose other than commerce, industry or any other business or profession located in the taxable territory. So I would not be liable to pay GST in such a scenario. Coming over to the next clause, clause C, it says supply includes activities specified in Schedule 1 made or agreed to be made without a consideration. Now, what are the activities that are specified in Schedule 1? First, permanent transfer or disposal of business assets where input tax credit has been availed on such assets. For example, a company is giving its used laptops, furniture, etc. to a charitable organization. The disposal of computers, tables, furniture, etc. is a supply of goods and is liable to GST. Next, supply of goods or service or both between related persons or between distinct persons as specified in section 25 when made in the course or the furtherance of business, which means stock transfers liable to GST, provided that gifts not exceeding 50,000 rupees in a value in a financial year by an employer to an employee shall not be treated as supply of goods or service or both. Next, supply of goods by a principal to his agent where the agent undertakes to supply such goods on the behalf of the principal, or by an agent to his principal where the agent undertakes to receive such goods on the behalf of the principal. This clause deems transactions between principal and agent as supply. This deeming fiction is only for the transactions between the principal and the agent and not between the third person. Currently, transfer of goods from principal to agent is not liable to VAT. This deeming fiction is to track the movement of the goods from the principal to the agent or vice versa, and not for commission or the brokerage that is being paid by the principal and agent, which anyways is liable even without this deeming fiction. Now coming over to the next, import of services by a taxable person from a related person or any of his other establishments outside India in the course or the furtherance of the business. This I have just already explained you. Now coming over to the next clause, section 7 subsection 1 clause D. The activities to be treated as supply of goods or supply of service as specified in Schedule 2. Now let us have a look what are the activities that are specified in Schedule 2. Basically, each of the clause of Schedule 2 has history of disputes, whether it is goods or service. This schedule specifies certain transactions as supply of goods or supply of service. This is to resolve the existing disputes, whether those transactions are goods or services. This distinction is more relevant in application of provisions like point of taxation, place of supply, etc. Now let us see what all activities are classified as goods or service in Schedule 2. First, transfer. Any transfer of title in the goods is a supply of goods. Under the present law, the transfer of title in goods is not a service and is liable to VAT only. Second, any transfer of goods or of right in goods or of undivided share in goods without the transfer of title thereof is a supply of service. Presently, the transfer of right to use the goods without the transfer of possession and control is a supply of service, and with the transfer of possession and control is a deemed sale. But under GST, without any distinction, said transfer will constitute as a supply of service. Next, any transfer of title in goods under an agreement which stipulates that the property in goods will pass at a future date upon payment of full consideration as agreed is a supply of goods. So, financial lease or hire purchase transactions would amount to supply of goods under GST. Under the present law, such transactions are liable to both service tax and VAT. Second, land and building. Any lease, tenancy, easement, license to occupy land is a supply of service. Presently, this activity is a taxable service, but leasing of land for agricultural purposes is in the negative list. Under the GST law, this activity amounts to supply of service. Next, any lease or letting out of the building, including a commercial, industrial or residential complex for business or commerce, either wholly or partly, is a supply of service. Under the existing law, renting of residential dwelling for residence is in the negative list. Renting of precincts of religious place and renting of individual units having daily rent below ₹1,000 are exempt. Under GST law, renting for business or commercial purposes only amounts to supply of service. Third, treatment or process. Any treatment or process which is being applied to another person's goods is a supply of service. Presently, no service tax is applicable on job work amounting to manufacture. GST will be applicable on all situations of job work without the distinction of manufacture or non-manufacture. Next, transfer of business assets. Transfer of business assets whereby or under the direction of a person carrying on a business, goods held or used for the purpose of the business are put to any private use or are used or made available to any person for use for any purpose other than for the purpose of the business, whether or not for a consideration, the usage or making available of such goods is a supply of service. So, meaning thereby, business assets transferred for non-business purpose with or without consideration is a supply of service. Transfer of business assets where person ceases to be a taxable person, any goods forming part of the assets of any business carried on by him shall be deemed to be supplied by him in the course or the furtherance of his business immediately before he ceases to be a taxable person, unless the business is transferred as a going concern to another person or the business is carried on by a personal representative who is deemed to be a taxable person. Meaning thereby, where a person ceases to become a taxable person, the business assets shall be deemed to be supplied by him except in these two specified situations. Next, supply of service. Renting of immovable property. Presently, taxable as a declared service under section 66E, clause A of the Finance Act. No VAT is levied. Second, construction of a complex building, civil structure or the part thereof, including a complex or the building intended for sale to a buyer, wholly or partly, except where the entire consideration has been received after the issuance of completion certificate where required by the competent authority or before its first occupation, whichever is earlier, is a service. Under the existing law, taxable as a declared service under the Finance Act, and VAT is also levied on the construction of a complex building or the civil structure. So under GST, such type of transactions would be considered as a supply of service only. Next, temporary transfer or permitting the use or enjoyment of any intellectual property right is a service. Under the present tax also, it is also a declared service. Next, development, design, programming, customization, adaptation, upgradation, enhancement, implementation of information technology software is a service. Under the present tax laws, software can be liable to tax under service tax, VAT or excise depending upon its nature. So whether it is sale of goods or service or both, under the GST law, this activity is a supply of service. Agreeing to the obligation to refrain from an act or to tolerate an act or a situation or to do an act is a service. Currently also it is considered as a declared service only and liable to service tax. Next, transfer of the right to use any goods for any purpose, whether or not for a consideration for cash, deferred payment or other valuable consideration is a service. Under the existing law, transfer of the right to use goods without the transfer of possession and control is a service, and with the transfer of possession and control is a sale. But under GST, it would be considered as supply of service only. Next, composite supply. Works contract including transfer of property in the goods, whether as goods or in some other form involved in the execution of the works contract is a service. Both pure labor contract and works contract involving transfer of property are service under the GST law. Under present law, both service tax and VAT are attracted on works contract. Second, supply by the way of or as the part of any service in any other manner whatsoever of goods being food or any other article for human consumption or any drink other than alcoholic liquor for human consumption, where such supply or service is for cash, deferred payment or other valuable consideration is a service. Restaurant and outdoor catering service are to be termed as service only under the GST law. Under the present law, both service tax and VAT are levied on restaurant and outdoor catering services. Next, supply of goods. Supply of goods by any unincorporated association or a body of persons to a member thereof for cash, deferred payment or other valuable consideration is a supply of goods. Supply of services by such association to members is not mentioned in the GST law. Under the present law, both service tax and VAT are attracted, but levy is disputed on the ground of mutuality. So these are the transactions that are specified in Schedule 2, which will be either treated as supply of goods or supply of services. Now, coming over to section 7 subsection 2, it says, notwithstanding anything contained in subsection 1, the activities or transactions specified in Schedule 3 or such activities or transactions undertaken by the central government, state government or any local authority in which they are engaged as public authorities as may be notified by the central government on the recommendation of the council shall be treated neither as supply of goods nor a supply of service. So let us see what are the transactions that are covered under Schedule 3. First, services by an employee to the employer in the course of or in relation to his employment. Second, services by any court or tribunal established under any law for the time being in force. Third, functions performed by the members of the parliament, members of state legislature, members of panchayat, members of municipalities and members of other local authorities. The duties performed by any person who holds any post in pursuance of the provisions of the constitution in that capacity, or the duties performed by any person as a chairperson or a member or a director in a body established by the central government or state government or local authority and who is not deemed as an employee before the commencement of this clause. So basically, the functions performed by the members of parliament will not be treated as a supply of goods or supply of services. Next, services of funeral, burial, crematorium or mortuary, including transportation of the deceased. Next, sale of land and subject to clause B of para 5 of schedule 2, sale of building. Next, actionable claims are outside GST other than lottery, betting and gambling. So, these are the transactions which will neither be classified as goods nor services. It is a type of a negative list in GST on which GST is not applicable. Now moving over to another concept. What is the meaning of composite supply and mixed supply? According to section 2 clause 30 of the CGST Act, composite supply means a supply made by a taxable person to a recipient consisting of two or more taxable supplies of goods or services or both, or any combination thereof, which are naturally bundled and supplied in conjunction with each other in the ordinary course of business, one of which is a principal supply. For example, where the goods are packed and transported with insurance, the supply of goods, packing material, transport and insurance is a composite supply, and supply of goods is the principal supply. Now, what is mixed supply? According to section 2 clause 74 of the CGST Act, mixed supply means two or more individual supplies of goods or services or any combination thereof made in conjunction with each other by a taxable person for a single price, where such supply does not constitute a composite supply. For example, a supply of package consisting of canned foods, sweets, chocolates, cakes, dry fruits, aerated drinks and fruit juices, when supplied for a single price, is a mixed supply. Each of these items can be supplied separately and is not dependent on any other. It shall not be a mixed supply if such items are supplied separately. Now let us understand the tax liability on composite supply and mixed supply. In case of composite supply, a composite supply comprising of two or more supplies, one of which is a principal supply, shall be treated as a supply of such principal supply. So, in my example, where I was supplying goods as well as providing services of packaging, transporting, etc., it will be considered as a composite supply of goods. Next, mixed supply. A mixed supply comprising two or more supplies shall be treated as a supply of that particular supply which attracts the highest rate of tax. So, this covers with the concept of supply. I hope you all have understood the basics of GST. What is the importance of GST? What is the need of GST? Why it is required? What all taxes are going to be subsumed in GST? And what is the meaning of supply? I hope you all enjoyed the session. Thank you.